to bring him in on this, but
I always wanted to go to Bucky Dent's Baseball Academy.
Robbie Listella did go to Bucky Dent's Baseball Academy.
I always
yes,
wanted to go, but my parents didn't have no money to send me to go to
oh, Bucky didn't have like the welfare plan available for you guys or not? No,
he showed up didn't, that I know of.
well, let's get him in here, man. It's our pleasure
Hey, there he is.
to welcome Bucky Dent.
Oh,
How are you, man?
Hey, we did have a welfare plan.
Did you?
You just didn't call.
Oh, come on, Nick.
hey, man, I wanted to go to Bucky Dent's Academy, man. I didn't.
Listella was looking for pictures from his time at the Bucky Dent Baseball Camp, but he just couldn't find them in time for the show. So, man, we appreciate you jumping on tonight. Nick, myself, and Luch all grew up in the New York area in that 76 to, Luch is still there. Me and Nick got the hell out. We smartened up, but
I got out because I had to go with mommy and daddy,
How much do you still follow the game now, or are you?
Oh, yeah, I watched the game. Actually, I got invited to spring training this year for the first time since 2005. It's been 20 years, but they did invite me. I was over there for about 8 days, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's a lot has changed. The complex is absolutely amazing. And I heard you guys talking about, guys, getting hurt. Well, their facility is just phenomenal over there. And, I still watch the game. I was watching the game today, following the Yankees, and I'm still a fan of the game.
Real quick, you being out there for the 8 days that you said you were out there, like, what do you see different of how they conduct themselves, or how the trainers handle players versus when you were playing and in the same situation? Like,
why is everybody hurt?
Well, that's a good question. I heard you talking a little bit earlier, we went to spring training to kind of get in shape, because we worked in the wintertime because we didn't make the kind of money these guys make today, but I remember my first year, 73, when I went to the big league camp, and I played 73, 74. I played a full year. And then the next year they told me to go to camp 10 pounds heavy because they wanted, we played in spring training to get in shape. And I think these guys, for me, I think they overtrain at times. Like you said, they're big, they're strong, but, I still believe that in the wintertime, you need to take a lot of time off to let your body, get back to where it needs to be, to rest and stuff like that. And the seasons are getting longer. Look, the World Series didn't get over till like November. And here they are, they're back in February, and the season's starting earlier and earlier. And I just think that they don't give themselves enough time to rest.
Yeah, I'm down on, like, I look at baseball now, and I grew up just a huge baseball fan. That was my sport. You guys were my team as a kid, and it's changed so much that it's hard for me now with the rule changes, with speeding up the game, with trips to the mound. There was no problem with baseball, in my opinion. I loved it the way it was, and I loved it because you guys would play your hearts out, but you all reminded me of everyday normal guys just out there doing your job, but having a great time doing it. And I don't remember any divas. I mean, I guess maybe, and I won't put you on the spot to say if Reggie was or wasn't a diva.
I was going to say Reggie.
But, I will ask you a couple of Reggie questions, but with the exception of maybe Bryce Harper today, I don't see many guys that would fit in to baseball in the late 70s, late 80s, because of the way Bryce plays. He'll run through a wall. He'll play hurt. He'll play through injuries. He leaves it all on the field. And that's what I felt like you guys used to do as a kid, and that's what inspired me.
Well, the game itself hasn't changed. I mean, it's 3 outs to a half inning, 6 outs to an inning, but I think that they're trying to change a lot of what baseball is about. Like, you can't break up a double play. The bases are like a pizza box, I mean, now they got the 20-second or 16-second clock, and I don't have a problem with that. But now you're talking about balls and strikes, and I did get to see that a little bit when I was in spring training. They would, challenge a pitch, and if it was a ball, they got another challenge, you know. So, but I think that they're trying to do too much of the game. The game is really a beautiful game, and the thing that I can't stand is you put a guy on second base in the 10th inning or whatever, you play extra innings.
Right.
You know, I just don't like that. That's not baseball. You know, you play the game, and I remember one year when we played like a 10-inning game, a 12-inning game, a 13-inning game, a 15-inning game, a 16, and we only had 11 pitchers, 12 at a time every now and then. And, you know, guys would pitch deeper in the game. And I know they throw harder. That's the one thing that they say, well, they throw harder. Well, you know, they groomed the pitchers like Guidry and I were talking about. You know, we're talking about pitching, you know, spring training, the first outing, they go 3. The second outing, they probably go 3. They built themselves up, and the power arms, you know, would take a little bit longer. They might beat around the first couple games, you know, just throwing fastballs and changeups or whatever, getting themselves ready. But then deeper as they got into spring training, you could see the velocity start to pick up, you know, where guys who were hard throwers, you know, by the end of spring training, they were ready. They were ready to pitch, you know. But I just think, you know, as far as the game, you know, they're trying to change too much. It's almost like they want to speed the game up and get it over with, you know, so the fans can go home. And that's what you didn't grow up. You grew up going to the game, sitting there. If the game went 12, 13, 14, you stayed there until the game was over. And that's what it was all about. Right. So I think the one thing that I've noticed is that it seems like they're trying to speed the game up too much.
And I watch less baseball now than I did a few years ago because of the batter clock and the pitch clock and all these dopey rules. And one more thing on the conditioning, like back in the day, I remember Tommy John had Tommy John surgery.
Right. That was it.
That was it. Now everyone is getting multiple Tommy John surgeries, and guys like, you know, we were talking about David Cohn a little while ago. I remember one time David Cohn pitching like 150 pitches in a playoff game. But when we go back and look at stats like Nolan Ryan, Gaylord Perry, even Goose would come in a closing situation when he would come in the 7th inning.
Yes. Yes.
And now it's just, it's completely, it's just not the same.
Well, we were joking, Gidger and I actually were joking in the clubhouse when we were there, you know, and I think Mark Harkey walked in. He goes, "Hey, Gator," he says, "how many Tommy Johns did you guys have when you played back then?" He said, "Tommy John." And he goes, no, how many? Seriously, he goes, "No, Tommy John. Tommy John was the only one that we knew of.
Got it.
They had Tommy John surgery, you know, so we didn't have a lot of that. And, you know, it's just, I think it starts too, and I had a baseball school, and, you know, I think it starts now where kids are playing year round. You know, the younger kids are playing almost 12 months out of the year with travel ball. And that's one of my things. You know, we're losing the multiple sport athlete. You know, like when I played football, baseball, basketball, you know, and you played them in season. And, you know, you got hand-eye coordination from playing basketball, you played baseball, you got your toughness from playing football. But now we're putting them into like one group, your baseball players, and you play 12 months out of the year. Well, young kids can't do that. They need to be kids. You need to let them go be kids. And I think they need to do something with travel ball to where they don't play year round anymore, you know, because they go from travel ball, like my grandkids went from all travel ball to now they go home, they get maybe a month off, and they go into high school baseball. Then from high school baseball, they go right back into travel baseball. So there's no downtime to let their arms and their bodies to rest. And that's one of my pet peeves as far as that, you know. But as far as the training, they're so more sophisticated as far as their training. But I just think that, you know, like joking around, you know, I was joking around with some of the guys. I said, you know, I don't think I had a rib cage muscle because we didn't pull rib cage muscles swinging, you know, back when we played, you know. So I don't know. Maybe we just didn't have rib cage muscles because, you know, guys, they swing an awful lot now. You know, they go from batting practice to the cage, from the cage back to batting practice to the game. And, you know, I just think they do too much as far as that.
Yeah, well, I think
that's my opinion.
I think they swing for the fences too much and not try to put the ball in play.
They do.
You know what I mean? I think the game has become like that. You know?
Well, the analytics, they go by the analytics as far as like the launch angle, and everybody wants to know how hard you hit the ball.
Right.
I always said, I don't care if you hit it 90 miles an hour, if it goes over the fence. I mean, but everybody's, looking at the velocity of the ball coming off the bat, and everybody's trained, oh, wow, it's the spin ratio, the velocity off the bat, the
Too much
this and the
science.
that, and it kind of clouds your mind as far as just playing the game.
Absolutely.
What was it like in 1978 to be the World Series MVP on a team that had Thurman Munson, Reggie Jackson, Greg Nettles, Gator,
Willie Randolph.
Billy Randolph? I mean, we can name them all. Chris Chambliss. I mean, Roy White.
There's a
We
whole
go through
bunch of
that.
them.
But I mean, what was that like for you? At first, you 163, you hit the home run, and you're still, and I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you're still the most hated person in Boston because every Bostonian that we've had on our show has got a special name for you.
I love it.
I think it's funny.
I love it. When we go back to Boston, I love it, but I tell you what, it was like, I've always said, as a kid growing up, the Yankees were my team. Mickey Mantle was my hero. And when we played, I was Mantle in the backyard, and I was always dreaming of hitting a big home run in a big game, and all those things came true for me. I got to play in one of the greatest games that was ever played, a one-game playoff, Boston and New York. Everybody, the whole world stopped to watch the game. And, I got to hit, a big famous home run. And then it carried over to the World Series, where I became the most valuable player. And like you said, there were some other guys that had some, a good World Series. Brian Doyle, filling in for Willie Randolph, had a really good World Series. Nettles at third base. So it was an honor for me to be named the 78 World Series MVP, but it was a dream come true, and to play for the Yankees, I think was something that was so special for me. When I got traded over to the Yankees opening day or the day before opening day in 77, it was the biggest thrill of my life. It was the best day of my life. And then the worst day of my life is when I got traded in 82 to Texas, but I always wanted to be a Yankee, and I got a chance to do that. And, not many guys get to fulfill their childhood dream of playing for the Yankees, meeting Mickey Mantle, who was my hero, being around all the great players that, for being in spring training, like I was in spring training, all those guys were in camp. And then, Old Timers Day, when they would come back, and they would be in the clubhouse with us, and you got to sit with them and hear their stories, and it was just phenomenal. So, I had a great career as far as all those things in my dreams come true. So I was very lucky.
I got a quick one for you. When you hit that home run, first, do you remember the first thing when you connected with the ball? Did you in your head I got it, or I got a piece of that thing? What was the first thing as you were trotting the first base, watching that thing lead?
No, I never. I knew I hit it really good, but there was a shadow on the wall, and I didn't know if I hit it high enough to get out. I hit it kind of on a line, and I didn't really know until I rounded first base, and the umpire signaled it was a home run, and then I saw Yastrzemski. He was buckled at the wall. He was, and then, I do remember rounding second, rounding third, and Fenway being dead silent. It was like dead silent.
That'd be beautiful.
It's got to be
a beautiful thing.
It was a beautiful thing to your ears, right?
And then crossing home plate and going towards the dugout, you could hear the sprinkling of the Yankee fans, and I could see the dugout. The guys came out of the dugout, and it was just a great thrill. But it went by quick because we had 3 more innings to go, and anything could happen in Fenway, which it did. It came down to Goose against Yastrzemski, and Goose threw a fastball that probably jumped 120 miles an hour, and Yastrzemski popped it up towards third base. And but I remember standing at shortstop when it was Goose and Yastrzemski, and Goose tells a story. He had a dream the night before that was going to come down to him and Yastrzemski.
No way.
And it did, and they asked him, they said, what would have happened if you hadn't got him out? He said, I'd have been hunting tomorrow. I'd have been on my ranch hunting tomorrow.
I hear that.
Yeah.
I hear that.
Those were great games, and they were great series against the Red Sox. And, you just don't forget those kind of games. And even during the course of the year, 78 was a phenomenal year because of what we did. We started out very slow. We had guys hurt. And then as we started to get healthy, we started to get closer. And the brain set was, hey, if we can pick up one game a week till we get to September, we play them 7 times. And that's what happened. Catfish came back. I was hurt. Mickey Rivers was hurt. We had some guys, we started to get healthy and we started to win. When we got Catfish back from that arm manipulation that they did on his shoulder, we had Guidry. That was the one constant we had that year.
Right.
Every 5th day we knew we were going to win. Then all of a sudden we get Catfish back. We started to win 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, and we started to get closer. And we got to September, the first part of September was the Boston Massacre. We went in there and beat them 4 straight. We beat them pretty bad. And then we went back home. I think we beat them 2 out of 3. But to give them credit, they came back the last week and they won like 6 in a row. And we went to the last day and lost. And we had to go play up there a 1-game playoff.
How much, and Luch, I'll come to you after this, but so how much, and I think 78 was the year all this happened. This is a 2-part question. What was it like playing for Billy? And then how much of a distraction was all of the side sort of shenanigans with Billy on that team? Because isn't that the team where Billy left or got fired mid-season?
Yes.
And Bob Lemon came in. Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
What was he like to play for? And then how much of a distraction was that whole mess for you guys?
Well, Billy was a fiery guy,
Absolutely.
and for some reason he didn't like me and he didn't like Reggie for some reason,
You
so
like anybody?
He had guys, but he was a fiery guy. But in 78, I honestly believe we would not have won if he didn't step down in the middle part of the year, because there was so much going on. There was so much chaos. And the one other good thing that sometimes we lose sight of is the papers went on strike. When Billy stepped down or got fired, Bob Lemon came in, the papers were on strike. So there wasn't a lot of negativity being written. So Bob came in, his statement was, hey, you guys were world champions last year. You can win it again this year. Go play. It was almost somebody like took a pin and popped a balloon. It went like, whew. And so everybody kind of relaxed and you could kind of like just concentrate on the game then. We didn't have to worry about what was being written in the papers. We didn't have to worry about what was going on with Billy and George and this and that and the other. And it just became, now we concentrated on baseball, and that's what happened. And
Tension left the room.
Hey, Luch, what do you got?
So no, do you ever go back to Boston, and what's it like with the fans? You have to kind of hear it from the fans, or what?
Oh yeah. I've been back a few times, and my wife and I, we went back for the playoff games a few years ago, and it was quite an experience. And then we went back there, and they were shooting something for the Yankee magazine. So we went back, and we went up on the wall, and we went in the wall, and actually the Red Sox people, I got to say, they were very, very kind and very nice. But it's always an experience to go back to Boston. The first thing you go in there, I don't care who you are, you look at the wall. When you walk in that stadium, you look to see the Green Monster because you hear so much about it and stuff like that. But I love going back. It was one of my favorite places to play because the crowds were intense. It was Yankees, New York against Boston. Yeah, and it was just chaos, screaming and yelling, calling you names, and throwing things at you. It's just a fun place to play.
Yeah, to this day.
What was the old Yankee Stadium like? Because to play in, I that was my stadium growing up as a kid. Right. When they built the new one, I prefer the old one. The new one's corporate. It's very sterile. The old one, it had
very sterile.
No, it is. It literally is.
The walls aren't leaking water.
Yeah, but was there something magical playing in that stadium?
Oh no, there wasn't.
Well, I got called up in 73, and I missed the old stadium. That's the one that I really wanted to go and see, was the old stadium. But 74, 75, we played in Shea. Mm-hmm. And so 76, when they remodeled the Yankee Stadium, we opened against the Yankees in New York with the White Sox. And so I got to see Yankee Stadium. But it was a cathedral, man. It was like, when I got traded there, it was like, wow. you know, this is where some of the greatest players to ever play the game and put those pinstripes on, you know, and you walk in there, and they always said there's ghosts in there. And I walked in, the first time I walked in with my bag and put it down, you know, I could feel it, you know, Mantle, Maris, DiMaggio, Gehrig, you know, all these great players. And that was the place. And that stadium, I can never forget Reggie when he hit the 3 home runs in '77. The place was vibrating. I mean, it was absolutely just shaking. It was so loud. And it was just a great place to play. And I hated to see it, you know, that they tore it down and built a new one, you know, because I always felt that that's where the great players play.
Yeah, that was my feeling. So what was it like playing for George? And then what was it like managing for George? Which was scarier? Managing had to be scarier under George. But what was it like? Because you managed twice, right? You managed, and then he did his thing, and then he brought you back. What happened was
a lot. You know, I played for him, and you know, the bottom line with George was he wanted to win, but you knew every chance, every year you went to spring training, you were going to have a chance to compete for a championship, and that was the bottom line. You know, he didn't have a problem calling you out if you did things wrong. You know, you wore your uniform right. He made you do things right, and he just wanted to win. Managing for him was a little bit different. You know, when I played for him, I just worried about myself. You know, when I managed for him, when I took over in '89, we weren't very good, and I told him so. You know, because I was managing AAA, and I knew what we had. We didn't have a whole lot, but you know, managing for him, I got along with him. We had a couple scuffles here and there, but you know, I would never say anything bad because he gave me an opportunity to play in New York. He gave me a chance to manage in New York and be a part of a great organization.
Luch, get one more for Bucky before we let him go.
Was it true that Craig Nettles used to write E5 on his glove?
Oh yeah, he used to write E5 on his glove. He didn't make many E5s, but I mean, he's one of the best third basemen that I ever played with. Him and Brooks Robinson in my time were the two. They were just outstanding third basemen, you know. And sometimes I wonder, you know, we were talking about this, why he doesn't really get mentioned more for the Hall of Fame, because he was a great defender, and you know, he played like 20-something years, I think. He had a tremendous sense of humor. Just a great sense of humor, as with a lot of the guys on that team. You know, I always said, you know, that the manager back then really didn't have to say much because we had guys like Munson, Piniella, you know, Nettles. If you did something wrong, you didn't want to get on the bus because they would call you out, you know, if you got on the bus. That's where the fun started, was, you know, when you got on the bus and you got it. You know, if you weren't playing well or you weren't in the game or whatever, they would say something to you. The manager didn't really have to say a whole lot to you, you know, but those were fun days. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
I got to tell you, it's a lot of fun. So we started this Bleacher Brothers Sports Network as a hobby, but now it's turned into a legitimate credentialed media network. And then we hooked up with a mutual friend, Chris Visser, who's our producer now. And like, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm talking to you.
Oh.
But in 1980, I would play wiffle ball on New York Avenue in Jersey City, New Jersey. And I would always be the Yankees. And I could do your batting stance, Reggie's, Winfield's, Randolph's, everybody. And I would go through my lineup, and I would be, you know, leading off Willie Randolph, and now I'm number 20, Bucky Dent. It's just, and then I could go lefty and do Reggie. And it was just, and now I'm sitting here talking to you. And what we try to do is, you know, we're fans. So we're for fans by fans, but we try to put the fans sort of in the dugout. And in the huddle. And
yeah.
You know, so if we're asking questions that you normally don't get, that's our whole that's our whole goal is, you know, what would the fans ask if they could?
Well, let me ask you, did you wear the black stuff under your eyes?
Yeah.
There were times, yes, when I played in Little League, I did wear the black stuff. But I got to tell you this, I did not go at number 20 when they gave me my choice.
You had a piece of some from barbecue grill.
Yeah, barbecue charcoal. That's what it was. Yeah.
No,
but I went with 9 because it was I love Bucky, I love Nettles, and I love Tommy John. Those were my guys growing up.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Hey,
that's
got a question for you. It's a little off, but being you born in Savannah, Georgia, right?
Yes, I was.
Yeah. How'd you end up in Hialeah, going to
Well,
Hialeah High School and winning
when I was young.
a two-way state championship in football and basketball?
Yes, we did. When I was young, my my mother gave me to my aunt and uncle, and I moved to Florida, and that's where we started in Miami. And I wound up in Hialeah playing high school football, baseball, and basketball at Hialeah High. And yeah,
Miami-Dade, right?
That's it's in Miami-Dade County. Yes, it was. And
Yeah, you went to
played
college in Miami-Dade.
Played against some great football players in high school. Played against some great baseball players.
Name one football player that you played against that was like somebody.
Ralph Ortega played for Coral Gables. Barry Smith, wide receiver, played for Carl Park. Let's see, Rufus Ferguson, he was a little running back. He went to Wisconsin. Nat Moore.
Okay.
Nat Moore wound up going to Florida. Mickey Rivers played for Northwestern High School. I played against him in high school.
Wow.
I mean, there were so many guys that came out of there that were really good players.
And you got two kids that are in college playing ball as well, softball and baseball, correct?
No, they've graduated. Yeah,
Okay.
I did have to. One played at Florida and
in North Carolina State or something like that.
North Carolina State, yes.
Yeah, and
yes.
what are they up to now?
You know, my son Cody lives in Boise. He's got a family out there. And my daughter lives in Boynton Beach, and she just had a.
That's where we are.
We're sitting in Boynton Beach.
You're in Boynton. Where are you at?
Sure.
Congress and Gateway. We're sitting at Congress and Gateway right now, and that's where our
Congress
studio
and
is.
Gateway was right down the street from where I used to live.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
Wow. What street did you live on? It was a long time ago. Maybe you live in his house. Maybe I live in his house.
I lived. If you went west on Gateway to La Palais.
Get out of town.
Development La Palais, and that's where I lived.
Wow.
For a long time.
Wow, look at that, man! This was fantastic. We can't thank you enough.
And my oldest daughter still lives here.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, and I got two grandkids, two boys that play at Park Vista High School.
Okay.
And one is a left-handed hitting catcher, is a junior that's got a chance to be really good, and the senior just got a scholarship to play at Erskine. He's a middle infielder, and they both play at Park Vista. And Park Vista was a really good high school to play baseball for kids. Trey Turner played with my son at Park Vista. They went to the state championship 3 times and got beat all 3, but they did get there and play in it, but they just couldn't get over the hump to win it. But yeah, Gateway. And actually, Pete Rose's
restaurant.
Yes, it was right across the street from here.
From where we are now, the restaurant.
Yeah.
Used to run into him and his brother in there lots of times, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
he had his hitting camp at my school for 6 years when he got suspended. He used to come down and do a hitting school down there.
That's awesome. That is
all right.
Over to Florida.
So I'm gonna call in a favor right now. I know we just met, but the next time you're in town visiting the kids and the grandkids, can you stop in and come in the studio and sit with us for a few minutes? I would
love to. Now, where are you at on Gateway and
right
literally on the corner of Gateway and Congress?
Right across the street where McDonald's. Remember where the old Motorola area used to be, the Motorola building?
Yes.
Yeah, they're gone.
That property is where we are now. They
Oh,
knocked
okay.
down Motorola and all that, and they build like condos and they build like plaza and all that. We're in that plaza.
The Ale House is right across the street. That's been here
I know.
forever. So
I know where you're at.
Yeah.
Yes, I do know where
And
you're
Boynton
at.
High School is right behind us. You
Yeah.
know. But really,
Oh, this is
one more
awesome.
too, because I got you here or whatever.
all right, we gotta let them go
all right,
though.
we
But go
gotta
ahead.
let 'em go.
Our last one.
I got plenty of time.
How do you feel about Aaron Judge, and do you think that Aaron Judge would, if he was playing in your time, do you think that he would be like annihilating the ball every night, or do you think?
Oh, Aaron Judge is Aaron Judge. You know, I don't care when you play. I mean, he's a great player, you know, and he's got, you know, tremendous power. And I really, you know, like to watch him play. He carries himself well. You know, he's a class guy. I got to be around him in spring training, you know, with a bunch of the other guys, and, you know, Volpe, and who's one of my favorites because he plays my position, you know, and Chisholm, what a character he is. You know, I really love being around him, you know, talking to him and stuff like that.
He's got great energy.
Yeah, he's got a lot of energy, and he's fun to be around. But no, Judge would be he would be Aaron Judge. I mean, he's a big, strong guy. He plays the game. He runs. He hits. He throws. He does it all.
Right.
We all have hundreds more questions for him, but we'll do them when he's sitting here with us. We'll do it when thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So much for coming on. This was the highlight of my week for sure.
Absolutely.
Is there anything where can we follow you? Are you on Twitter? Are you on Instagram? Are you on anything?
Nah.
Don't you have a podcast?
Nah. When I retired, I said I'm not doing all this stuff. I'm retired. I'm not being a part of social media or any of that stuff.
He's golfing a lot. I can tell.
No, I don't even golf anymore. We like to fish. We like to hunt. My wife and I like to travel, and we love to fish.
Enjoying life.
Yeah, enjoying life. That's it. Watching some baseball. I do watch the Yankees all the time. Like I say, they're still my favorite team. I still root for them. Broke my heart last year. They didn't win the World Series.
Yeah, but that was a tough team they had to go against. You know what I mean?
Well, they had them beat.
Yeah, well,
they had them beat.
Still tough. That team is loaded and stacked over there.
Yeah, it is. But it's going to be interesting.
The same thing that haunts us every year is the pitching and injuries.
Yep, that's the thing. You got to stay healthy, and you got to pitch it, and you got to catch it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
The great Bucky Dent. Thank you so much. We'll be back. There's way more show to come. We'll be back with this is not where is wrong theme. There we go.
Thank you, Bucky.
Right, there we go.
Oh,
thank you,
welcome,
Bucky.
man.
We appreciate it. We'll be back.
So glad to be with you guys, man.
We can't wait to have you in. We can't wait to have you in. We'll be back. We need to take you to Boston. We were invited by Rich Hill to come to Boston. Yeah, then we were invited to go to a VIP private club. Cleon Daskalaskis. They all refer to you by your Boston name, Bucky.
There you go.
Bucky,
I love it.
But yeah, we got to do this. We got to plan a road trip with Bucky Dent. This is going to be awesome.
That'd be fun.
Thank you so much.